What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful, fantastic Monday afternoon. A lot earlier, we missed two shows from the last 2 weeks. I was out of the country over there visiting Italy. We'll probably talk about that later on in this episode, but we've got a lot to catch up on after this long break that me and the gentleman took from the show. Starting off, though, Florida State in the works of a potential massive five-star quarterback flip. We're going to jump into that and discuss what Mike and company and Gus Malzahn are trying to do. Outside of that, though, we're going to talk about some anonymous ACC coaches that gave their thoughts on Florida State's current football program and Mike Norvell and what's going on in the situation in Tallahassee. And then we're going to jump into Georgia Tech. They made some bowl rings with Florida State featured on them. Interested to get these guys' takes on that. We're going to talk about Mekhi Danzy, who's currently headed to the national championship in track and field. We've got some other quick hitters as well, including some new kickoff times. And then to finish off this show, we've got a big fat Q&A segment for you guys, 10 plus questions involved. And then two, we will be joined by Emily Peters from Tribe Check on our NoleGameday podcast network. She's going to come on and talk some FSU baseball for us and help us because, as you know, on this show, we don't talk a whole ton of baseball. So she's going to join us at the end of this show. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. I know a lot of you are always in the comments asking about baseball, what's the updates, all that kind of stuff. We're not the best at that, but that's why we have Emily joining us to give us the scoop after a big win from the Seminoles last night as they're headed into Supers. With me this afternoon is Austin Veazey, our lead basketball writer there in the middle, and all the way to the other side is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief. How we doing, gentlemen? How was your 2-week break from not having to talk to me?
Sounds like it wasn't as good as yours, being over there in Italy. I'm just stuck here in Tallahassee at the beginning stages of the summer. It's heating up, it's humid, so I'm sure you enjoyed the last couple of weeks a lot more than me and probably Austin too.
I don't know. I kind of enjoyed the peace and quiet, to be honest.
Oh, well, maybe not.
I knew that was coming. I knew someone
Sorry
would
to
say
assume.
Dustin was a lot nicer, but I knew Veazey would go ahead and make sure one shot was taken. But it was a good break. It was a good break. I'll talk about it a little bit more later in the show, but
I'm sure you will.
It was a fun trip. It was a fun trip. I just got to be away from work for a long extended amount of time, and I got to say that was very nice, I must say.
I bet it was.
But you know what? With breaks and taking time away from everything, it allows for creativity to build. So I've got a lot of new ideas, some projects, some that have to do with this YouTube channel and game days, all different kinds of things. So maybe it worked out in the favor. I was still working a little bit in the brain, but not after about 4 or 5 glasses of wine, which you have no choice in drinking, by the way. I couldn't say anything. And when the bottle's right there given to you before you even sit down, that's not my job. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. So, but before we get started, as always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play. I think we're still on Spotify. I just got like an email from one of our listeners saying that they're having some issues there. So I'm going to check on that this week and make sure that we're still over there on Spotify, maybe some copyright issues. I don't know. Dustin might have said a few things and got us in trouble, but who knows? But I'll make sure that's fixed. But we're still on all of the other audio platforms. But if not, if you're on YouTube, this is the place to be. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button too. We have the comments section over here to your bottom right as you're watching right now. It's in beta form here on StreamYard, and it's extremely small like I'm seeing right now. So we might be turning that off because I can barely see it right now, and it's right over Dustin's mouth. So
get it off me.
If anybody wanted to do some certain emojis right now, I would go ahead and throw those in while you can.
I'll exit the stream.
He'll turn his camera off.
Yeah. So, but yeah, nonetheless, though, throw some questions. And if you have any, like I said, we have 10 plus in here as well to go through. So a busy show this afternoon for you guys on Monday. So let's get started. So main topic for the show this afternoon is 5-star quarterback Keyshawn Henderson is going to be visiting Florida State. 5-star out of Spring, Texas, It seems like the Seminoles, Mike Norvell, Gus Malzahn going back to his Auburn days and his whole entire coaching career, he has been able to obtain some top-tier talent at the quarterback position, but they're trying to make a big flip. He's currently committed to Houston, 6'3", 185 pounds, ranked as the number 2 quarterback in the 2026 class, top 3 player in the class overall per 247 Sports. But this comes from On Three's Steve Wiltfong saying Henderson will take an official visit to Florida State this month now that we're in June, and saying that the Seminoles have the best chance right now of making that big flip over there from the Texas area and those Houston Cougars. Thoughts on this one, D-Lou? Because, I mean, I was far gone out of the country, and then starting to see this kind of swirl up and the news emerge here. Seems like Mike and the Seminoles and Gus are trying to make a big move to shock the country a little bit.
Yeah, this is one that Florida State has been working on for, I mean, around since the beginning of the year started. You know, you think back to when Brady Smigel backed off his commitment to FSU in January, and the Seminoles responded by, you know, offering Keyshawn Henderson along with Landon Duckworth and Bowie Bentley. And, you know, we've kind of seen those quarterback dominoes fall a little bit. Bentley previously eliminated Florida State from his recruitment a couple weeks ago. And, you know, Duckworth has been a top target. We've seen Oklahoma commit Jaden O'Neal come back into the picture. And, you know, it felt like those were kind of the 2 guys that Florida State had the best chance at for the last couple of weeks, because, you know, a guy like Henderson, who we're talking about here, he hasn't been to Tallahassee yet this offseason. But now with him setting up that official visit, you know, in May, that's going to be big for Florida State in their chances to try and flip him from Houston. You know, obviously he's been committed to the Cougars for about a year, and, you know, they're right by his hometown. So that's a local spot for him. But at the same time, a lot of Power 4 programs have turned up the heat. And I think a school like Florida State, you think about the offense that Mike Norvell runs and Gus Malzahn coming in and becoming the offensive coordinator in Tallahassee. A guy like Keyshawn Henderson as a dual threat is really a perfect fit for what they're looking to build moving forward. And, you know, we're going to see they're going to take their shot at him in a couple weeks when he's on campus, and Florida State, you know, pushing to make that flip. And if so, I mean, that'd be a huge recruiting win in this Tribe 26 class, and, you know, give them a bell cow for this 2026 class that they can build around.
Wilfong really mentioned the strong relationship that Henderson has with Tony Tokarz, Florida State's quarterbacks coach. And then too, like you were mentioning there, that similarity of dual threat, you go back and the success that they were able to have with Jordan Travis and developing him and getting him to the caliber that he was. Also too, Jordan Travis in Tallahassee there with you, D-Lou, was visiting
It wasn't with me.
He wasn't with you, absolutely not. No, but he was at the elite camp checking out things. And I keep on seeing Twitter, you know, wanting to get him on staff and all that. And still, I would imagine, you know, Mike and them probably having those conversations. But yes, going back to Henderson, that kind of play that a quarterback has that has been successful for Gus Malzahn through his coaching career. And of course, like we just mentioned, Trav, really interested to see. And, you know, nowadays it goes along with NIL. A lot of it is just rested on the shoulders of that. And to me, it's always going to be the biggest question mark of how much Florida State will spend. And I think that's what it comes down to. And, you know, I think too, it comes off of what the success Florida State has early on in this season, how they perform day one, game one, in that 3:30 kickoff against Alabama. A lot of that's going to play a massive part in how the recruitment trail looks like for Florida State moving forward. But when you have a chance like this, Florida State has a strong chance. How much do you think they, you know, will actually take on making this happen? And to me, it all rests on the NIL game and how much they're willing to spend, D-Lou.
Yeah, you got to pick and choose your spots. And, you know, we saw Florida State just in December, you know, invest heavily to flip Chroma from Georgia, bring him to Tallahassee, land a premium running back. And, you know, I think you've kind of got to operate in a similar vein here when you're trying to land a prospect like Henderson. Because, I mean, you look back at it throughout Mike Norvell's tenure in Tallahassee. I mean, Florida State's recruiting from at the prep level at the quarterback position, I mean, has been pretty subpar. You know, 7 quarterbacks have signed with Florida State. 5 of those guys have transferred. Brock Glenn is the only guy with experience on the roster, and Kevin Sperry just signed with FSU. during the early signing period. So, I mean, they need to flip what they've been doing on the quarterback front and actually begin to develop guys from that high school level. And Keyshawn Henderson, I mean, as we've said, a premium prospect, a guy who looks like he could be a perfect fit at Florida State and someone that could be a star at the college level if everything goes to plan. So, I mean, that's certainly someone that you would drop the dominoes for, I believe.
Mhm. My last note on Henderson too is really I'm interested to see how Henderson watches Florida State this year and how Thomas Castellanos is utilized in Gus Malzahn's offense. This is Gus, he's had tons of experience as calling plays, running offensive systems, and finding success. A lot of that in the run game too, but very interested to see how Florida State, that's the big question mark going into the season, how Castellanos has moved around, how much they're going to be utilizing those legs. That's something that Bill O'Brien wasn't going to do at Boston College. So to me, if Florida State's really at a strong chance here, that means that they're talking to him saying, hey, just get ready to see how we're going to be using Castellanos this year and how that can really play in a factor for you and garnering your commitment and that eventual signing to Florida State. And that's what it's going to play the biggest role to me, I think.
Yeah, and it really feels like we're back, like right before that 2022 season for Florida State. You had seen some of the flashes in 2020 and 2021, but there were still some question marks. Like, is Mike Norvell and that coaching staff, are they going to be the guys in Tallahassee? And we saw them prove it in 2022 and 2023. Things obviously fell off last season. Now Florida State's revamped their coaching staff, and I think there's a lot of intrigue from recruits. But once again, it's kind of like a prove it deal for Florida State. If they go out and have some success, show that Mike Norvell is going to continue to be in Tallahassee long term, these new coaching staff additions and what they did revamping the roster is beginning to work out for Florida State, get them back on that upward trend. You're going to see guys trying to hop on the boat once again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was a comment on here just talking about, if Florida State were to land Henderson, would that create momentum? Absolutely. That's just something definitely when you land a top tier at that position group, top 3 player in the class, that's just automatic. And that's going to create tons of momentum for you all across the board, not just offensively, because you always want to find those strong top tier offensive linemen and your playmakers. But too, it's a domino effect, like Dustin said. It goes all the way to your defense and just creates some good energy there for you on the recruiting trail moving forward, and also to seals you in what you feel like positively for Mike Norvell and this new staff moving forward into the next year. If things, are leaning positively after you face Alabama to kick off the season.
Yeah, that would be a big one. That's a guy that other recruits would want to come play for or come play with. And, I know some of these other ones didn't work out for Florida State, but I mean, think about the returns when they had a guy like Travis Hunter to the recruiting class or Luke Kromenhoek, and then they had KJ Bolden committed for that time period. I mean, there was some real momentum, some real juice around Florida State, and other recruits, they saw those decisions. They're like, man, maybe I should go hop on board with the tribe as well. So, Florida State looking to land one of those guys and then keep him once he gets to Tallahassee as well.
Do we have a official date on whenever he's expecting to take his official visit, or is it just sometime in June?
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
got the
have that
date.
listed.
It's June 9th to 11th. So this upcoming weekend, actually, he'll be on campus in Tallahassee, and Florida State going to take their shot here. Right now, at least publicly, this is the only official visit that he's taken outside of where he's committed to in Houston. So, we'll see if Florida State can pull off a shocker, but they could certainly use that jolt wave of momentum at this point of the recruiting cycle. Sitting right there at, I believe, number 25 in the country. And I mean, these next couple weeks are going to be crucial for the Seminoles. You had the first round of official visits begin at Florida State last weekend. That's going to continue here. I think, 70, 80 prospects are expected to officially visit Florida State throughout June. It is a crazy recruiting cycle, man. I mean, the first one now where not only recruits, but also schools are allowed to host unlimited official visits. And I think Florida State hosted less than 50 official visits all of last season and already going to about double that just in June.
Wow. Okay. Let's jump over to another topic here on the show this afternoon. 2 anonymous ACC coaches speaking on Florida State, the current state of the program, Mike Norvell and everything. Florida State in 2021 going 10-3, 2023, of course, having that big season, going 13-0, winning the ACC championship, and then going and getting the college football playoff snub. And of course, last year, don't need to talk much about that. But here's two coaches that gave their thoughts on Florida State. One of them saying there's a significant disconnect in the talent at this program. On paper and the rankings, they're doing great, but a lot of their rivals feel like they're not recruiting at a truly elite level, and the guys they get aren't developing. And I'll go to the second one here and we'll give our thoughts on it. But here's the other coach saying it fell apart faster than I've ever seen. They were really early adapters to the portal, which is very true. And that 2023 team was an absolute nightmare to scheme against. You had the combination of in-house development guys from Florida high schools and transfers. They started missing it in both categories after that. So to me, I mean, straightforward. I agree with every bit of what these two anonymous coaches have said to Athlon Sports here. I think the biggest thing, we were literally just kind of just discussing it, at least going back to the quarterback position, but it's happened all across the board for Florida State on not being able to develop in certain key areas that they need the most, and the disconnect from the talent. On paper and rankings are doing great, but then they can't get guys to develop. And we've talked about that immensely, about Florida State's offensive line problems at the wide receiver room, bringing in high-class talent there and not being able to do things with them and get them out on the field to be productive players for you. And then, what he just said there too about the recruiting and getting Florida high schools and transfers. They were early adapters to that, which we've pressed on heavily. Florida State, Mike, they were really, really early on that and found high success. I think with Mike and Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss, those were some two programs that were ahead of everybody else. But now you can tell they've been lapped, and it's a lot of work now to get out of that rut. But what are y'all's thoughts on these two coaches that gave some thoughts on FSU?
I don't think either of them were wrong. I mean, Florida State, like you were just kind of stressing, Logan, early on, I mean, they were an adapter to the transfer portal and did really well there. But now you've seen over the last couple of years, everybody else has now caught up and figured out the transfer portal. And in the same vein, we just haven't seen Florida State take the necessary steps on the high school front. Mike Norvell hasn't landed a top 10 class since he got to Tallahassee, and that was something that was pretty routine. When you think back to the Jimbo Fisher days, the Bobby Bowden days, I mean, Florida State was always up there in that top 10 and the top 5. And I mean, even grabbing number 1 classes for decades. And that hasn't been the case here the last 5 or 6 years. And at the same time, the guys that Florida State has recruited, a lot of them have ended up, busting and not working out. You think back to the offensive line classes a couple of years ago in 2021 and 2022. I mean, basically all of those guys are out of the program, and you had that 6 signee class in 2022 that there was a lot of promise around. None of those guys remain with the program. So you've seen some key failures, not only at quarterback and on offensive line, but just all around in those recruiting classes. I mean, some of them you had, around 20 guys signed with Florida State, and then 4 or 5 of them in that class finished their careers in Tallahassee. So I think FSU, they've got to do a lot better with their hit rate in these recruiting classes moving forward, because it's not sustainable to recruit that many guys, have them all transfer out, then have to replace them all through the transfer portal each year. And, that's kind of led Florida State to where it is at the moment.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback off that, I think the only small thing I disagree with is that first quote saying on paper they have great talent. I don't necessarily agree with that. Just because Florida State has such high standards for the talent that they bring on their roster, and this roster this year and last year's roster just haven't felt like Florida State type talent. The 22 and 23 teams did, and I think that's part of why they're going to mention the transfer portal and how that helped the team so much. But this year and last year just don't feel like Florida State talent. They feel like great talent at a lot of places around the ACC, but not Florida State. And I think that's kind of the standard that the program had built up for 30, 40 years with Bobby and Jimbo. And that standard's fallen off, and they're having a hard time trying to replicate that standard again.
Yep. I think to me, Florida State, the way that they were doing early on through the transfer portal, they were going in and they read their talent very well and understood the fits, and they already had guys developed already on that roster. Then things got a little lackadaisical and kind of backed off from, hey, we still got to make sure we're developing our in-house guys that we've had on in this program. and really started looking, the success. I think success is what also hurt them because they felt way too comfortable, and not only just the way that they were going through the transfer portal, but they got really comfortable with their coaching staff as well. Coaches that could not develop for year upon year upon year upon year. And that hurt them. And as we know, Florida State had to make a lot of coaching staff moves. So I think just from these two coaches, I think they are correct in about everything that they stated there and that. And let's see, we got some more comments here from some of our listeners about the question marks around Mike Norvell. Can he turn this around? And we'll discuss a few of those here in just a minute. Let's look at some Georgia Tech bowl rings because Florida State got featured in them. I missed this while I was over there in Italy. I really missed out on this. You're shaking your head, D-Lou, so you must be one of those people that aren't really a big fan of what the Yellow Jackets put together here. But Summer Ice. Let's check these out. So this is the Georgia Tech, and they released, I guess, these
things
bowl
are
rings, even though they lost. So let me just get this clear here. So
yes,
they lost that bowl game,
the Bahamas Bowl
to Vandy.
Yep,
and they made a ring. That was it. Wait, no, it was a Birmingham Bowl, right? At least that's
either
what I
way. Who cares? That's the Who Cares Bowl.
Damn, come on, man, Birmingham.
No, I'm with him on this one.
Birmingham. Who cares?
Yeah, no.
Sorry, Birmingham listeners.
Yeah, about to say, apologize to them, but yes, I don't plan on heading over there to Birmingham.
Move.
Jeez. Okay. But here we go. They have marquee wins on there, and Florida State and Miami are both in there as well. Thoughts on these rings here? I mean, VZ, you're our fashionita. Is that what they call them? What do you feel about these? These got some swag to them or not?
Is the bling blinging?
It's not, because you lost the game. That's it's embarrassing. What was crazy was my first thought is that they used the FSU baseball logo and not the football logo, but I'm guessing it's just because it's easier to engrave. But maybe. I just found that detail funny. Yeah, this is there's no sugarcoating this. This is lame as shit. This is horrible.
Like, this is, you can't wear this ring. You get the box and you put this like in the top drawer of your dresser. You never pull it out for 15 years. You cannot wear this around campus. You can't wear it around town.
You can't show a chick that. You can't go out and show a chick this, man.
Why even waste the funds on this? At least if they would have won the bowl game, I get it.
Yeah.
They lost the bowl game.
I mean, yeah, it's the Birmingham Bowl, but if you win the bowl game, yeah, sure. You lost the game to Vanderbilt. And I get Vanderbilt was better than expected last year. Let's not get it twisted. But you lost the Birmingham Bowl to Vanderbilt. Just that sentence alone does not deserve a ring.
Mm-mm.
Can you imagine if they would have beat Georgia, though? I mean, what would these things? They might have hung a banner.
Oh, no, they would have been all all diamond.
If a marquee win is being a 2-10 football team in Europe, congrats, man.
I think these are further two quote unquote top 10 wins of the season. But yeah, after Florida State's year, I would have just left that one off.
Yeah, it's not really that impressive after Florida State going 2-10.
And they went 5-0 at home, so that's good.
There you go, but 7-6 overall on the season. Yeah, I did not see this when it happened, but now just looking at the Twitter engagement, this is practically my reaction. Is this GIF right here of just shaking my head, just putting my hands to my face, like, what is going on here, people? Yeah, that one you put away, or you like give off back to like one of those drop down machines at Fun Station. I don't know
this one. You just take and melt and take the value of whatever.
Get the diamonds off? Can you take those diamonds off or something?
Take the jewels out, melt the gold. That's a better use of this ring than wearing it.
Yeah, I mean, this was worth a PowerPoint slide at the football banquet. They didn't have to do all this.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Well, I'm glad I did not see that while I was on my trip, but it's even more embarrassing now just to see it. Very, very odd. All right, let's jump over to our next topic. Mekhi Danzy, talk about flying with speed, man. He is headed to the national championship in track and field and the 400 meter as a true freshman. Shout out to you too, D-Lou. I mean, he's Florida High alum. You are too. Both you and him are not really that similar on the running factor, but y'all both went to
Not
Florida
really.
High together, and
Yeah.
he's
Well,
going
not
the national
together,
champion. Yeah. Did you ever do track? Or was it all football? Did you do shot put?
I went to the track when we had to go run there for football. Does that count?
Mandatory. You had no choice.
Yeah.
But
That's what
he
I'm like.
placed.
I'm not built for that.
No, absolutely not. But Makai Danzy placed 5th at the NCAA qualifiers in the 400 meter, 45.26. I used to run the 400 meter back in my day, but not in the 45 range, really about in the 49s, I'd say. But he advanced to nationals there. He's the first FSU 400 meter runner to make nationals since 2015. This is when Kayla Funderburk, Walter Dix, one of my favorite track and field runners in Florida State history, absolute demon in the 200 meters and also 100 meters. But 200 meters, that man was facing against guys like Usain Bolt over there back in the Olympics days, and also too Colleen Quigley. This was back in 2015 when FSU track made a big run there. But shout out to Makai Danzy, man. He also won the ACC championship with a 44.38. So he can run faster than what he ran in the NCAA qualifiers. So that's why we all should be tuning in. This man could really get into that top 3 and be placed there as well. Or shoot, he could just come away with the entire thing. Just depends on what kind of start he has and what kind of stride he has there in that last stretch. But this man has got some speed. And I'm now, if I'm Gus Malzahn and Mike Norvell, I'm licking my chops on what I can try to do with him on the football field as well with this speed, and what Florida State, as we're kind of starting to figure out, is how they're going to utilize him in this offense. Because, we've seen him used in a lot of packages in the pass game. He's got that long, lengthy build to him. He's not just kind of like your natural running back stereotype. Lanky, long.
He's a wide receiver now.
Yeah, wide receiver. So that's what I'm interested to see, though, how they work with him there on what kind of routes they would like to scheme him up with, because that speed is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, speed. I mean, what a freshman season it's been for Makai Danzy. Going from that football season, then instantly transitioning to track, not really having the same amount of preparation as maybe some of the other athletes on the team who were solely focused on track. And I mean, just lighting it up. I believe he's been named the ACC Rookie of the Week 3 different times. Some of that during the indoor season, and now during the outdoor season as well. He was a indoor and outdoor all ACC first team selection. And remember, we're talking about a guy in his first season running track with the team, and set a personal best. You went with it, Logan, 44.38 in the 400. That's freaking fast, man. I couldn't even imagine. I don't even know if I can drive my car that fast. But now Makai Danzy moving on to Oregon, going to compete in the national championships in 2 different events. Obviously the 400, like we're talking about, but he's also going to be part of FSU's 4-man relay team in the 4x100 that will also be competing for a national championship. So, we'll see if he's able to add a trophy to his name here in a couple weeks.
I'm just thinking about his future too in track and field. As just a true freshman, being able to accomplish these things. Whew, just imagine the next year or 2 where he's going to be placing himself as he can break some records and make history for Florida State.
And we've seen some guys, who were dual sport athletes, excelled on the track, played football as well, go on to just solely focus on track. I do wonder if that's something that might be on Makai Danzy's mind. But at the same time, you're seeing him on social media during this track season where he's competing in the ACC championship, doing his thing over there at the NCAA qualifier in Jacksonville. He's still talking about Florida State's upcoming football season and, the goals that he's setting for himself. I think he said on Twitter a couple weeks ago that he wants to be a track national champion and then score the first touchdown of the 2025 season for Florida State against Alabama. So, I mean, kid has some lofty goals, and I think it's really cool to see that he's still committed to doing what he's doing, what he wants to do on the football field, along with excelling on the track, obviously.
I think a great time to score that touchdown would be at kickoff return against Alabama.
That's what he said.
That would be nice.
So I guess we might know our kickoff returner for Florida State. Early depth chart indication.
Hey, might have just given us some scoop. Who knows? Before we jump into the last little quick hitters here, before we get into our Q&A session, here's a question from Reese Williamson asking, and a $2 bomb as well, asking, what's the pitch to recruits if we go 6-6 this year? D-Lou, you look, I mean, you're smiling. I mean, do you say new staff? Is that your pitch?
We got plenty of playing time for you. Rebuild us again. I don't know.
That's the message
tough
almost
one
right now, sadly.
Say
I'm surprised Beasley hasn't just said.
Could say something like, hey, we tripled our win total. Do it again. We got a national championship.
He's a better coach than me. Wow. It's pretty good.
I mean, I was thinking what you were thinking, but if you want to take the positive route, that's one way to do it.
Yeah. I think my recruiting pitch is, hey, we got a new coaching staff. Check out and get the new numbers for these new coaches. That's about all I've got for you. But
new coaching staff again?
Yeah. We'll get to the part here in one of these questions of what kind of record, keeps Mike around or feels successful. 6 ain't cutting it for me. I don't know about y'all and, y'all too, and whoever else is listening to this show, but 6 ain't cutting it for me, y'all.
Well, if you ask me to make a record prediction right now.
No. You hold off on that. After this spring, we got to wait. Let us have a few weeks of fall camp. Things could be a little bit different, healthy.
That sounds like a bad idea.
Come on. Let us have a few weeks. And who knows, maybe, Dustin, you might be there at practices. You think Gus Malzahn's going to give you a chance? Think he'll give you maybe once a week you can go to practices? Or you think we're completely cut off? Think it's all over? No more media access?
Probably not. They might give us one scrimmage during fall camp. I would imagine we're not going to get anything during the season, but
no.
We'll see. I don't think it's going to be like years past, that's for sure.
No, I don't think so either. All right, let's jump into some quick hitters real quick. Daniel Lyons, FSU defensive tackle. He's changing his jersey number from number 95 to number 5. Beezy is shaking his head, doesn't like it. He's going back to he's going over to Joshua Farmer's
Can we
number.
stop with the single-digit D lineman? I don't like it.
No,
I can deal with it with edge rushers because people like Verse can make it look good. I didn't like it with Farmer last year. I like it even less with Daniel Lyons.
He had to get Daryl Jackson a new duo.
Daryl Jackson needs to change his number too.
Dang, for real?
It doesn't look good.
No, you don't like it.
It just does not look good.
No.
But I think at the very least, it shows Florida State does have high expectations for Daniel Lyons. I mean, this is a number typically reserved for standouts through the program. You think back recently, obviously we just talked about Joshua Farmer, guy who got drafted in the NFL. Verse before that got drafted in the NFL. You can go back to the day and think about guys like Jameis, some other ones. Typically if you're wearing number 5, you're producing at Florida State.
You should be, but there were some players given that last year, and I was tired of seeing them on the field. So,
all right, don't talk about Trevor Jackson like that.
No, I'm not. We never got to see Trevor Jackson. We were all waiting for Trevor Jackson, man. Come on.
He got that one snap.
You also can't.
One snap.
His one snap. I don't think I was looking. But once again, why in the world was he getting that jersey number anyways? Why are you giving that to? Why were you giving Jameis to a 4-string? That doesn't make any sense. What are we doing? Oh God, don't even get me started. Oh Lord, it's jersey numbers, Logan. Who cares? Real quick though, let's go over to some kickoff times real quick. East Texas A&M is going to be a hot one in week 2. That's going to be at noon on the good old ACC network. It's going to be brutal there, D-Lou. You got to get there early too.
Burn, baby, burn. Oh, I'll be in the shade. I'll have the roof over my head. I'm looking forward to that. Some Powerades in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be looking down laughing. Sorry,
that's all right. Now that's messed up. You're an asshole. You're an asshole. But I don't think anybody would care though if you beat Alabama. Nobody's going to care. They'll be in those stands. It doesn't matter. It's still going to be hot.
The Alabama game is going to have a huge impact on that attendance for the East Texas A&M game. If Florida State somehow comes out and beats Alabama, people might go to that East Texas A&M game. If it goes how I think it's going to go, there will be 100 people in the stands the following week because it's going to be 110 degrees against a really bad football team.
Yes, it is going to be hot as hell. Then Florida State goes to Virginia. This will be at 7. o'clock on ESPN for that game.
Friday night.
Friday night game, baby. Friday night up in Virginia, and then Florida State goes to Stanford. Here's a late one.
Of the city.
He couldn't remember it. I was waiting for him to say it.
Oh, you want me to guess the city? Hold on.
I thought you were trying to. And then you're
There's
like,
one that I got
Virginia.
right off the top of my head. Hold on. The name of Virginia.
Start with a C.
Yeah, don't give him that.
No. Oh, I was going to go Richmond.
No.
Oh man,
I've never been to this stadium. I'm sorry, y'all.
I have actually.
Wait. Give me one more chance. I don't know what a C was. No.
CH.
CH? Oh, come on, Virginia.
A.
Where's Virginia?
Stop.
CH.
He's got it. He's got to get
No,
this.
don't say I've got it.
I'm giving him the letters.
No, stop giving him hints.
Where is Virginia? Where is the Virginia Cavaliers? Virginia.
He's really googling this. This is crazy.
I'm not playing. I'm trying to figure it out. Virginia. Where is Virginia at? I don't. Just give me another word. Give me another letter. Give me another letter.
R.
CHAR. Give me another letter. Give me another letter.
Think of where I live and then add some more to it.
Charlottesville.
Yeah, there you go.
Close.
Is it really Charlottesville?
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Oh, Charlottesville. Okay. Sorry, Virginia.
It's actually a cool little stadium. I went there 2019 or so, something like that.
This is fun. We should try and have you guess where more colleges are.
Yeah,
let's try to do that. Yeah, let's do that once a week on this show. That'd be great. Be here for 30 more minutes on the show. Hey, it's the off season. We got nothing else to do. Anyways, real quick though, Florida State is going to have a late game, at least for the east side of the fan base, because Florida State's going to kick off against Stanford on the road at 10:30 on ESPN. That means that our instant reaction is going to be around 2 a.m. Everybody.
Where's Stanford at, Logan?
Stanford. I mean, I think of San Francisco area.
Palo Alto.
It's that
Palo
area.
Alto. Okay, beautiful area.
That might be a Dustin and I instant reaction because we might be the only two awake for that one.
That is true. Yeah. I used to be the night owl, but now these two take care of the night owl stuff and I take care of the early morning parts of it. So yeah, we will have to try to figure out some kind of instant reaction for you guys on that one. Whoever's going to still be awake for it. Really depends if Florida State's winning or not in that game. Because I've already seen tweets. No, I'm not going to be up. I'm not staying up for that. If they're down after the first quarter, I'm done. If they're down at the first drive, I'm turning the TV off. You're going to be watching, I guarantee it. But I wouldn't blame you though if they're down by a couple scores and you want to hit the sack.
Well, the good thing is
the good old
is looking a little mid, so we'll see how that one shakes
Stanford.
out.
They just go through a coaching change like 3 weeks ago. Odd time for that.
Yeah, like I said, Dustin, 2-10 last year. Don't have any word. We can't say anything right now. Week to week basis here on this show, and then no matter how bad they are, and then NC State.
Win. Go ahead.
Would you just stop it? No, you're not. You're capping. NC State's at 8:00. I mean, no shocker that's that's another Friday night game, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's at 8:00 ESPN. VZ, you gonna go to that one?
We'll see.
We'll see.
I was planning on it, but we'll see.
Okay. But yeah, 8:00. No shocker there. Blah blah blah. That is your updated and new kickoff times for FSU going into the season. Let's jump into some Q&A, gentlemen. We've got 10 plus questions in here, all over the place. A mix of personal questions, a mix of the upcoming season. We got Castellanos, Brock Glenn, Mike Norvell, everything possible. And two, we have baseball. So make sure if you love baseball, if you follow FSU baseball, we will have Emily on at the end of this show. So stay tuned for that. We're going to get her thoughts on the not football, but baseball. All right, here we go. Question number 1 from Tampa Nole 813 down here with me in the Bay Area, asking, do you think FSU really saw Castellanos as their guy from the jump, or was he more of a backup plan that turned into a buy low opportunity once other options didn't work out? And what do you think the floor ceiling is with him? Do we see Brock get some real reps? this year. So kind of a 3-part triple question here from our guy Tampa Nole 813. Do y'all think they were right after they wanted Castellanos and that was their guy that they were destined for and wanted, or did they jump really quickly, kind of how like they did last year and grabbing DJU when there was some speculation and talk that they would have preferred Cam Ward?
I wouldn't say last year was quick because that was a process where they waited for Cam Ward for a few weeks at least, if not a month. I don't think it was that long, but they definitely waited to make sure that either he was going to the draft or he was going to Miami. They wanted Cam Ward first before they pivoted to DJU. So I wouldn't say they acted too quickly on that.
No, and if you think about it, obviously Florida State brings in Gus Malzahn. Tommy Castellanos is already in the transfer portal, and you've got the previous fit between the two. I thought it just really made sense for Florida State because you're bringing in a quarterback that Gus Malzahn has already coached for a year. He's already familiar with, and the same thing from Tommy Castellanos. You already know what to expect when you're playing in that Gus Malzahn offense that you have previous experience in. And plus, I think both parties are looking at that 2024 campaign that he had at Boston College as a little bit of an outlier where, he was forced into a system that didn't fit his skill set. And then now he's going to be back into an offense that really caters to who he is as a player, not only with his arm, which we did see take some improvements last year in 2024, but also his legs, which have made him so dynamic at the college level for years now and allowed him to set some records at Boston College. So, I think Florida State, they're obviously banking on Tommy Castellanos to have a little bit of a resurgence. But to me, it felt like he was obviously their top quarterback target from the jump. They weren't really connected with any other signal callers in the portal. And obviously no other transfer quarterbacks visited Florida State outside of Castellanos. They're pretty dead set on him. And, I think he's got a chance to bounce back in a big way in 2025. As far as, maybe a ceiling, I kind of look to how Jordan Travis was playing at the end of that 2021 campaign where, he was still what he was as a dual threat quarterback, but he was finally starting to figure out how to have success with that arm. You think back to the last 4 or 5 games in that 2021 campaign, the win against Miami, whenever they went up to Boston College, he had a pretty good game there on the road. And, I know things didn't work out in Gainesville at the end of that season, but, I could see Tommy Castellanos kind of being on that same track.
Yeah, I agree. Especially once they got Malzahn on board, he was very clearly the top option for them at quarterback. It also there also wasn't a ton of great quarterbacks on the market this offseason. John Mateer from Washington State would have been really nice. Maybe Fernando Mendoza from Cal would have been a cool option, bring him back to his home state. But they weren't going to get involved with a guy like Nico Iamaleava, who didn't even enter the portal until the spring. So that didn't matter. Same thing with Carson Beck. I don't think they were going to show much interest there. There wasn't a ton of great options at quarterback in the portal this offseason. There's familiarity there already with Malzahn and Tommy. I think it just made a lot of sense from both sides, just with how the board was going to play out. As far as the floor and ceiling, I kind of agree with D-Lou. I don't think his ceiling is that high, but the floor could get quite low depending on what the receiver room looks like and how this offensive line develops and brings together some cohesion. But I think that having a dual threat quarterback back there is going to help a lot. Not having a quarterback that looks like his feet are concrete bricks back there will help this offense in breakdowns. But, I don't know if that ceiling's necessarily as high as people want it to be.
And I forgot to answer the Brock part of the question, but at least from my point of view, I don't think you're going to see Brock Glenn get a ton of real opportunities and reps unless Tommy Castellanos suffers an injury.
Or he just plays horribly.
Which I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't
think so either.
No, and I don't think an FSU fan would want to see that. You want to see where Thomas Castellanos has taken the strides during this. Yeah, you don't want to see that happen, and had enough of that a little bit. You had to last year, you were forced to do so. But I think too, the guys point out everything possible here, but then too, I think, Mike and the staff were looking for someone that could lead the team. That's something that they lost last year across the entire board. And one of Castellanos is one of my favorite things, if not the top thing from him, outside of being a really athletic runner and with great vision and can make guys miss, is that leadership factor, a guy that likes to play with fire and energy and will be vocal and hold guys accountable. That's something that Florida State missed heavily last year, and I think that's something Castellanos will be bringing this upcoming season. And, if good or bad, he's going to be there and be communicative, and Florida State needs that. And if we've had tons of 2013 national championship guys on here and other all-time greats, and they say communication, accountability is a massive factor for the success of a football team, and it needs to be player-led. And Mike has said that too this offseason. This team needs to be player-led, and that wasn't really the case last year. And I don't think a lot of guys had the confidence to step up, and you had a lot of the younger guys do so, but a lot of the veterans lost a lot of their confidence last year because of what fell apart. So I think that's what, Florida State, they looked at that and doing their homework on Castellanos, and that seemed to fit what they needed. And I agree, they did need someone like this. Let's jump over to the next question here. This one's coming from our guy Pandas Tab, asking, will there be a NoleGameday tailgate for the Bama game? Which newcomer, freshman, or transfer isn't being talked about enough? So will there be a NoleGameday tailgate for the Bama game? Don't know yet. We get asked this quite a bit if we're going to have a NoleGameday tailgate, multiple games throughout the year and definitely during the offseason. Going to see what we can do. I would love to do like a meetup thing. And when we say tailgate, when I think of tailgate, that's us, or at least me, being able to enjoy a beverage or 5 or 6. So in order for us to do that, we need to do a tailgate pretty damn early so we can chug some waters, because we still have a job to do and we got to be professional. So, but we'll see what ends up happening. But it would be great to do a meetup. And if you guys would like to do something like that, drop it in the comments or the chat. And if we get a lot of people that are intrigued in doing that, because we've met a lot of you listeners just out at restaurants. Me, VZ, and D-Lou were out having some barbecue at Four Rivers, and one of y'all came up to us and said, hey, and got to chat it up a little bit. And I see a lot of y'all too when I'm around a campus or in Tallahassee and such. So we deeply appreciate y'all's support and listening to us, and to be able to just hang out with y'all in person and chop it up would be fantastic. So that's something that I'll look into this offseason and see if we can come up with that. Now that Emily, she's got the sponsorship to plug with MadSo, we might have some connections there. So we'll tip her brain at the end of the show. But real quick, which newcomer, freshman, or transfer isn't being talked about enough to you guys?
So I've got one freshman and one transfer. As far as the freshman, I'm going with Shamar Arno, a freshman who signed with FSU, 4-star prospect back in December, early enrolled at Florida State. And, it seems like he's made a quick impression on the program this offseason during the tour of duty, and that continued into spring practice. And, we've talked about Florida State's defensive backfield a lot. There's a good amount of youth there. And I think someone like Arno could rise up that depth chart during fall camp if he continues this kind of stride that he's on at the moment. And as far as transfers, I'm going with Deontay McCray. Florida State made some additions to that defensive line this offseason. I think everyone's thinking about James Williams, and, obviously he could be a breakout player for the Seminoles. But someone like Deontay McCray, who had a pretty good career over there at Western Kentucky, established himself as someone who's very good against the run, and, he's starting to improve a little bit as a pass rusher. He also came into Florida State and, instantly staked a claim along the trenches during spring practice, and sounds like the coaching staff has been impressed with what he's brought to the table. Wouldn't surprise me if he's in that starting lineup if everything goes to plan during fall camp.
I think we talk a lot about these newcomers just because last year's team was so bad that we needed something new. A little bit of the grass is always greener kind of thing. I will go with Stephon Thompson, the linebacker out of Nebraska. Obviously, he's been with Tony White both at Syracuse and at Nebraska. He's just super familiar with that system. I think that leadership is going to be huge, not just for that linebacker room, but for that entire defense, trying to get them up to speed. Having someone that's been in that system for 3 or 4 years, I don't think it can be talked about enough for what that leadership's going to do. And we've talked, ad nauseum about how much leadership wasn't on last year's team. I think this is a good start for this year's team.
There's guys that have been talked about quite a bit. We've talked about Javon Boggs, someone that we think is going to get into this rotation pretty damn early, it seems like, after a really strong showing in the spring. But one that was talked about a good bit, so it might be a name that maybe isn't kind of high, one that fits this question mark, but I think it's an interesting one because of the room and how talented it is and what we think is going to be probably the strongest in this unit. And because of that, I'm going to go Chase Lofton in here. I don't know why, but something's telling me that we're going to see some Lofton in this upcoming season. I think, too, it's going to help because there's not a lot of tape that these defensive coordinators will have on him, and really interested to see if he can maneuver his way. I don't think he's going to be an influential, like crazy, huge game-changing player for you, but he is going to, I expect him to, jump in the rotation, maybe have some opportunities by chance because of that room and how talented it is, and maybe could sneak in there here and there and as being one of those pass catchers for you. All right, let's jump over to another question here. This one is coming from DW6 on Twitter asking, what's one thing Norvell does better than people give him credit for? Now that we have the schedule and some kickoff times, which road game do you think Florida State fans will travel to the most? So this is a two-parter. And here, gentlemen, VZ, this seems like right up your alley right here. What's one thing Norvell does better than people give him credit for, you think?
I think he does almost too good of a job at being hands-off and making sure he's got his fingers in a little bit of everywhere, making sure that the players are taking care of their academics and making sure that they're good people off the field and building connections with the players and the staff and everything. And sometimes that can be to his detriment because he can't focus on one thing and it kind of just seeps through the cracks. But I think he just does a good job of managing some of the little things.
Am I up?
Yes.
Yeah, you're up.
For that part.
This is a tough one. This is a tough one.
Whoa, it's tough. Why is it?
But I'm really going. I think I'm going to go with relationship building. I mean, one thing that he's always done is have a close relationship with the players, with the coaching staff, and then you even think on the recruiting trail, and not only how he treats prospective recruits that some who sign with Florida State, some who don't, but also the way that Florida State receives their families and shows respect there. I think they've set a high bar for themselves with how they do that. And, it doesn't always work out. Relationships aren't the biggest factor for some players. And, obviously NIL gets involved at certain points, but we have seen this come back to help Florida State. They build a relationship with a guy, he signs elsewhere. And then if that guy does happen to enter the transfer portal and Florida State's interested, when they kick the tires, that previous relationship obviously helps out. And we saw it a couple times benefit Florida State in the transfer portal last year. And, you think about it with a guy like Earl Little Jr., who Florida State recruited out of high school. He signed with Alabama. He entered the transfer portal, before the 2024 season. Florida State lands him. And now going into 2025, I mean, this is a guy who we're talking about as maybe a game changer on defense and a potential starter for Florida State. So, that's those relationships, they can pay off years down the line. And I think that's something that Florida State has kind of capitalized on, especially as of late, even if it hasn't always worked out.
Mm-hmm. I'll give my comment on the kickoff times here. Which road game do you think Florida State fans will travel to?
No, answer the first question.
No, you got that. Y'all did it. Y'all
filled
it all out for me.
No, you got to answer it. I need to hear your thoughts.
We got Emily waiting. We've got baseball to talk about here. I'm ready to talk some FSU baseball. D-Lou. I was going to mention, I feel like he's done better here, and then on the legacy parts, getting legacy recruits in, but has it worked out well? Like you said?
No, it is not.
Not really. No, it has not really worked out well in that part. So, well, that's just like how we were talking about earlier in the show. Development, got to develop these guys, and yeah, I think it's also developing, but also no, never mind. Save that for probably maybe we'll do a Hear the Spear after dark. We still never mind. Anyways, let's jump over to the games that we think that more FSU fans will travel to this season. I think it really depends, though, on how successful Florida State is in the earlier parts of this season. That will attract for FSU fans to travel to them. But I've been seeing a lot of traction. My family, a lot of my friends, and I am also intrigued of going to Stanford. First off, number one, I don't want to be up so late over here. So there's number one. Number two, I love going over to the West Coast as well. That's a really pretty campus as well, and the chance to go over there and enjoy that for a couple of days would be great. So, and they also have a huge booster weekend happening there from the booster team over there. They've got all kinds of a cool schedule going on. And but I would say Stanford, because outside of that, yes, we usually try to go over to Clemson. I always enjoy being up there in Death Valley. We were there 2 years ago because the press box, it's outside, it's loud. You actually feel like you're at the football game. And Doak, for us, for media, you're behind a big fat glass wall up there at the top, and you don't really get to hear as much. But at that stadium, it's nice and loud. But I'd say Stanford, the season's going well. I think a lot of FSU fans would love to enjoy a trip over there, because then you have a home game, and that's not until November 1st as well. So it'd give you time if you want to travel for a little bit. Seems like a good idea to me.
I 100% agree with you. I think if Florida State is good, then Clemson would be the most attended game, just because that's always a well-attended game for Florida State fans. But if the season starts out kind of sluggish, like you just mentioned, there's a lot of Florida State fans out on the West Coast that don't really get a chance to watch Florida State very often. It's not that hard to get to Stanford. The NC State game and the Virginia game, both of those are on a Friday night. It's going to be hard for a lot of Florida State fans to make that trip. And what Logan didn't say is we couldn't choose a Florida game since it's in state. So out of those four options with Clemson, Stanford, NC State, and Virginia, it's really just going to come down to Clemson and Stanford.
Yeah, the question was added in there that you can't pick Florida teams as well. And I've been to NC State, and for a Friday night game, not fun, not great. D'Lo, no chance. No, you don't want to give your comment. What are you going to tell us there?
I refuse to answer his question.
You refuse to? Okay, since I didn't fully answer the other one, you're not going to answer this one. Okay, I see what we're doing here. All right, let's keep moving here, because we got Emily to join us. This is from, awesome name, by the way, at Game of Noles on Twitter. Shout out for that name there. And this is a question. You could tell us about your trip, and I added this in here. Did your cat, Gilly, can't really see her anymore, but she's actually still on the bed, but she's cut out. But did your cat hold a grudge when you returned? No, she did not. She's been all over me, which is awesome. She's a sweet cat. And then about the trip, super fun, 10 plus days, enjoyed it, got to see the Vatican, got to jump around to the Colosseum. We were in Rome, got to go to Florence, got to go over to Sorrento, Capri, kind of just all over the place, I would say. But 10-day trip with a tour group, super fun, got to see all this historical stuff. And I would say if anybody's been to the Vatican or plan on doing it, man, that is a different kind of animal. I would say it's the size about 20 friggin' Costco's you're walking into, and way more prettier, I will say.
What a comparison.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming.
A lot of statues. And just to keep it PG here, a lot of the hot dogs were small and the stones were huge. Let's just put it there. Something that.
Why were you looking at that part of the statue?
It's part of the statue, and it's right in front of you. You have no choice. It's literally there.
Sure, you were taking a video, zoomed in.
Oh, I took the most videos then, actually, D-Lou. Took a lot of zoom ins too, D-Lou. I'll show that to you if you want me to send those to you after the show. I can.
I'll need the highlights.
No, but awesome trip. Enjoyed it. Got to, like I said, take a break from these two guys. So that was the best part of it all. And I got to spend some time with family. I will say, though, a lot of time with family. Still love each other. But, man, that is a lot of family time all at once. Early mornings, late nights, not a lot of sleep. Did we almost kill each other multiple times? Absolutely. But we're still alive. We still love each other. And, yeah, but Italy's gorgeous. I was super grateful for the opportunity to get over there. Let's keep moving, though. Thank you for the question there, though, Game of Noles. Here's a question from Reb_Hombre asking, what will be considered a good season for the Noles and what will be a disappointment? I can see the Noles going 8-4. So he's got FSU going 8-4. That's a bowl bid right there. To me, that feels like a good season for Florida State. That keeps Mike Norvell secured moving forward. What's a good season for you guys, gentlemen? I know we've kind of tossed this around. It changes every month. I don't know. Have we changed any thoughts on it for you guys?
Not really. I think, a good season for Florida State at the minimum, you've got to hit that 7-5 mark. That at least shows some progress. You're going back in the right direction. The new coaching additions and the revamped roster helped you start to find your footing once again. Anything under that, even if Florida State goes 6-6, which I've talked about before, as the very minimum that you can do. But I think 6-6, would still be a disappointment for the fan base, especially after coming off a 2-10 season where, I mean, you were one of the worst football teams in the country. Florida State, they've got to show some improvement here to keep the fans, the boosters, everyone dialed in if this thing's going to work out for Mike Norvell.
Yeah, if they go 8-4, I would be ecstatic because I don't expect that to happen. I think 8-4 would be a phenomenal season given what we saw last year. And I agree with Dustin. I think if you're 6-6 or anything worse, there's going to be a lot of questions about the future of this program.
It'll be a hot seat.
Hot seat, scorching heat.
I mean, you tell us here in the chat, everybody.
Game against East Texas A&M kind of heat.
Yeah, this is the question of the show right here, and I know a lot of y'all listen after we go live on the VOD. So put down in the comments what is a successful season for Florida State and what keeps Mike Norvell around. But I think 6-6, that doesn't work for me personally. 7, it does to me secure you there. 8-4 is fantastic. Like VZ just said, that's a good season after going 2-10. That should build you some really good recruiting momentum. That's what we were just talking about. 5-star quarterback Keyshawn Henderson. That starts building really, really good momentum heading into next season. You having some positives going into your recruiting class. What would be a disappointment? Yeah, we went through that 6-6 to me. There's a question here from Stan the Man, our guy from Discord, asking, we want the truth about the helmet giveaway, which is right. Can't see it here, but it's right there a little bit. 2013 national champion helmet. We want the truth about the helmet giveaway. Statute of limitations has been passed by now to whatever caused the plug on that to get pulled. So we were supposed to give away this helmet a couple of years ago on.
What do you mean we? It's your helmet.
Yeah,
you still have it. So
well, there was a situation. I'm working on getting another one of these. I've just got to find my guy, and he might be listening to the show, but I've lost his contact, and I got a new phone. I mean, it's been 4 or 5 years. I mean, it was during the start of COVID, but I do want to give away another one of these. And I don't know. Los told me, Carlos said I can't give it away. I was like, no, we need to do it. He's like, no, don't do it. I'm gonna come beat you up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not saying that. He did not say that. Carlos Williams did not say that, but I could see him actually saying that.
I could see him saying it. Absolutely.
I mean, he's said plenty of things to me before, so I actually would believe that. But no, I do want to do another one of these. I just got to find the guy who made it. It's actually, why don't I just show it?
So you're just gonna tease him now?
Yeah, I mean, I want to do one before the season begins. Let me talk to the mic here. But got the ACC on. Look at that BCS. Isn't that beautiful? And on the logo there, ACC, old traditional helmet. Got the visor, one that Los would have worn back in his day of playing days. But yes, I'm working on that. I just got to get in contact with the guy, and we will be doing one hopefully before the season ends. And it's going to be fully customizable. I want to do kind of a different one than the 2013 one. I want to make it, I don't know, it's going to look pretty dope. So I just got to find the contact for my guy there. Here's one from our guy, Terrell Thomas. He's also here in the YouTube comments, one of our big listeners, asking, Oklahoma drill, who wins, Logan or Dustin? Oklahoma drill is where you get down 3-point stand. Some you can go 4, and you got the pads on. Usually the first day of spring once you get pads on. And I don't think you can necessarily do that anymore. Is it legal now to do that in the NCAA?
It's frowned upon.
High school, we
Just
were
don't get caught.
Yeah. Depends. What were you weighing back in high school, D-Lou?
No. Let me answer this because Terrell is asking this for now. He's not asking this for when you guys are in high school. Dustin is not getting out of a 3-point stance right now. So by default,
I would just like to add, I've been putting in the work this offseason.
Here we go.
What you been doing? Let them know.
I've lost about 35 pounds.
Wow.
So
damn.
I think I could get out of a 3-point stance. And honestly, I've been waiting 9 years to put this man on his back. So.
What the
I wait 9 years for a reason. So give me one.
That's messed up, man. I don't know. The biggest thing to me is that Achilles, D-Lou. I don't know about that. You still injured though. You might be cutting down weight, but that Achilles
Doing better.
is doing better.
I can't beat you at a race.
Oh yeah, no, the race thing won't work. Yeah, I still got you on that one. But hey, D-Lou trimming up. Okay, I'm interested. We just got to get you in a different colored shirt. The day that we get you in a different colored shirt, look,
That
we got
is
Beezy
never
wearing
happened.
blue hats now. Like, we got to get D-Lou. Man, if only he could wear one of these with us one day.
I know. We didn't even plan this, by the way. Logan and I are both wearing the same SI shirt.
No, I didn't
Yeah,
even
we are.
notice.
Yeah.
Yep, we're repping, baby. But here, let's keep on moving here, though. But that conversation, we just, at one point it's gonna have to be me versus Los in a race, and then it's gonna, I guess, me beat D-Lou with some pads on, and we're gonna have to do it. Maybe at the tailgate after like a 12-pack of beer. Dustin, how about that?
I just say no pads.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump into some baseball talk here, which we rarely do on this show. We'll usually bring up some scoop or the latest. And I think every year maybe we'll give like 2 thoughts on it because we are not the most intelligent nor fully informed on baseball, which I should be because I grew up playing baseball and my dad and uncle love baseball, but I don't keep up with it as much. But I was watching the entirety of the game last night. Super fun. The stadium was rocking. And with us on the show this afternoon is our lady Emily Peters from Tribe Check. How we doing, Emily? How we doing?
Hello, boys. How are you guys?
Doing phenomenal. Are you right outside Dick Hauser right now? Because I feel like you practically live there.
No, I'm not actually, but I definitely lived there this weekend. We were there for 14 hours on Friday.
Ooh, Dustin could never.
Yeah.
Dustin could never do that at Doak.
I don't think most people could, to be completely honest with you. But the way the regional works is obviously there's 4 teams, so it's not just Florida State's game that's happening. We have to broadcast all of those games. So we were there for the early game, which of course was Florida State on Friday, but there was a 2.5-ish hour rain delay for that game, which pushed everything back. So I walked into Doak Campbell because our broadcast rooms and stuff, it's not at Dick Hauser, it's at Doak Campbell. So I walked in there at 9, 10 a.m. on Friday morning, and I walked out right around midnight. So that was super fun. So I'm happy not to be there right now.
I bet so. A good long little break here from all the craziness, because watching last night, I mean, I know you're over there in Doak, but just looked like just full of that got me entertained, because baseball doesn't as much as me to like football and other things and fighting and whatnot. But to me last night, Dick Hauser was rolling. Just tell us a little bit about the environment and, just the vibe, FSU fans, and just the feel of this team moving forward after beating Mississippi State and getting that win last night, moving on to Supers.
Yeah, well, of course, I was not at Hauser. Unfortunately, I wish I was, because just listening to what I could hear from the natural sounds of the broadcast from the stadium, the fans were absolutely losing their minds the entire time. Big shout out to the animals of Section B. Could not be the environment that it is without them. They are absolutely unreal. And they definitely do a great job of keeping all the fans in it, because no, baseball is not the most exciting sport. But those animals have a chant for pretty much every single circumstance, and they definitely keep the fans in it. And they are so fun to listen to. It's always so fun for me because I'm working pretty much every single home game. So for these games that are broadcasted nationally on ACC Network, ESPN, all of those kinds of things, a lot of times ESPN brings in different directors and producers for those games. So it's really fun for me to listen to them react to the fans at Dick Hauser and see the animals, because a lot of them aren't as familiar. So they see these fans and they hear it and they're like, wow, these people love Florida State baseball. And it makes so much of a difference. You have an SEC powerhouse team oh, hey, Terrell. You have a SEC team like Mississippi State, who's not the best in the SEC this year. But those environments are known for being like Hauser, super loud, super intimidating, hard for other teams to come in and do well in. And you could tell they were rattled by our environment. That's a huge kudos to our fan base, and I love it. I wish I was out there this weekend. I was losing my mind in the control room. It's really hard for me to stay professional sometimes in those kind of games. But I mean, oh my gosh, so exciting, so much fun, and huge shout out to the fans.
How about Link Jarrett getting ejected from the game very early on? And that,
Yeah.
what was your thoughts on that? And to just the control room, and I was seeing FSU Twitter going crazy about it, but just that whole situation too. That was filled with drama. That's probably why I was really intrigued with it. But there was a lot of drama in this game overall, and they still were able to go out there and play without their head man out there.
Well, there's so many different things to say about this, and it all goes back to the SEC ACC narrative. This is a regional game. It's postseason. It's going to be chippy. We have a lot of history with Mississippi State. They kicked us out, of course, a few years ago, 2018, came into Hauser, beat us. We don't like the Bulldogs, okay? Like, not at all. And I know softball doesn't like the Bulldogs. We're not friends. So right off the bat, like, I know there were some conversations among the coaches and the umpires talking about sportsmanship, what was going to be expected. There was like a rundown. There was a lot talked about already going into this game, and Link saw something he didn't like, and it set him off. And I've never seen Link like that before. So something I truly don't know what exactly was said or what happened. All of us were just kind of speculating, and I'm not sure if anyone truly knows, but I've never seen Link that way. So, and I know that he's the kind of guy that would do anything and stand up for his team. And that's what he was doing in that moment. I think for me, my initial reaction was, I know a lot of fans were fired up about it, and Mississippi State was everybody was fired up. But my initial reaction, and maybe this is just because I'm super anxious as a person, but it made me nervous. I was like, well, shoot, can the umpires take advantage of this situation now? Can they walk all over us? Can they completely screw over Florida State? I don't know. Link is gone. But I do think I think Micah Posey, the pitching coach, I think in Pose the Hose we trust, as we say. He is a fantastic coach. All of the assistant coaches did a phenomenal job. Definitely made all the right decisions there. And by the finish up, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but an assistant coach and a player for Mississippi State got tossed as well. So it was very chippy. There a lot of things, but you expect it, right, from a matchup like this in a postseason environment. And it ended up being just fine for the Noles. So hopefully it doesn't happen again, though. I don't know. I don't like when things like that happen, because it shakes up the norm, and I'm I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, that made me a little nervous there, because losing your head coach out there is tough. But you can tell from, at least since Link Jarrett's arrived, I feel like that team plays very hard with a lot of energy. They they like the trash talk. There's a whole ton of confidence. So that's why, kind of the positive and negative. I took the positive of, hey, this team's going to play extra hard now, because they did just have Jarrett get tossed. And it took a little while. The bats took a little while. They had a lot of guys on bases, just could not score. But then they were able to take that lead there in the latter half of that game. There's a question here, though, Emily, from Twitter asking us, and we wanted to lead this to you because Dustin ain't going to be answering this. There's just, I don't even know if he knows. Do you know who Link Jarrett is?
Isn't he like a video game character or something like that?
He's not a video game
It
character.
could be someday.
Yeah. But this is
I
from.
was not expecting a
I'm
Zelda
joking.
reference.
I didn't know. I don't know where he came from. That I don't know where video game character came, but oh Lord. Anyways, this is from Lane Gullet 2000. Interesting name there on Twitter, but appreciate them asking this. With a lot of higher ranked teams in baseball eliminated in the regionals, which there has been a ton, do you guys think this is the year that Florida State baseball finally gets the national championship? What do you think here, Emily? Because I've been trying to keep up with it as much as I can, really just last night, and then just seeing all the tweets and a lot of the FSU beat covering it, and Brett doing a great job over there for 247 Sports. But a lot of stuff happening nationally, and these top teams going down. And Florida State, really, really talented. They got that 9th seed. Now they're going to go over to a super. What do you think? Does this team have a chance to bring back a championship for the first time?
Well, it's a loaded question. I can like ramble on about this for a while. So if I go too long, just go like this. Because I know a lot of you guys don't care as much about baseball. This is like my whole entire heart. But
no, I'm
but
invested right now. I'm fully invested. We're fully invested. We're going game by game. Dustin and I and VZ, we're going to give a preview and give some score predictions for every game moving forward now. We have to.
Dustin's going to leave the chat in just one moment. But no, my initial reaction to answer the question is 100% yes, like 1000% yes. And baseball, I think in general, I think it's really tough to like predict these things. I think it's a sport where you see more upsets than any other sport. Any team can beat any team on any given day. But this year in particular, if you've been following college baseball, it's been really hard to predict a top team, much less a top 16 teams. It's been very volatile. There's been a lot of fluctuations. If you take just Florida State as a team as one example, it's peaks and valleys, and that's just baseball. I think this team has showed you a lot of glimpses of a lot of really, really good stuff. I think their best is the best in the nation, but I also think we've seen some really, really low points. And when they're not good, they're not good. So that part does make you a little bit more hesitant. But is there a chance that this is the year? Yes, 100%. And I think the way this weekend went, the competitiveness that we've seen from this team this weekend, but also as of late, like, you know, you begin the season, it's not the highest level of competition. The ACC is really, really close to the SEC. I don't want to take anything away from what the SEC is as a conference, but I do think the way teams are assumed because they're a part of this conference, it's just like football. Like for people listening that don't really care as much baseball, all of these sports are kind of suffering because the SEC is getting this treatment and assumed this way. And that's why you see a lot of these like top teams like Vandy and Texas 1 and 2 already out of this national championship conversation because they weren't the top 2 teams in the nation, but like Vandy won the SEC tournament, so you automatically assume they are. I could go on a tangent about UNC. I think they're the top team. I know that they lost yesterday. They play Oklahoma at 3, so in a little less than an hour, so that'll be a good game. But no, I think Florida State at certain parts of the season have been number one. And I think what you've seen from them lately, competitiveness wise, starting rotation wise, the way Wes Mendez pitched yesterday was close to, if not better than what we saw from Jamie Arnold all season. Not to take anything away from Jamie. I actually like love him, and his mom and I like talk on Twitter sometimes, like phenomenal person on and off the field. And just felt like what you saw from him on Saturday was like waiting all season to see, and it was so much fun to see. But you see Wes Mendez pitching at that level now, Jamie Arnold pitching like Jamie Arnold, the ace #1 draft prospect that he is. I'm not worried about Joey Vellini. I think he will get back into it, and he's had a couple of outings which were a little bit shorter, which I think are good for him because he's had a really, really intense season. So I think you'll see him back into what we've seen from him all season long. So starting from that starting rotation and then the bats all the way down 1 through 9, if they can bring you their A stuff and they can be what we've seen them be, then 100% all the way I see it.
I want to finish it off here real quick, and there's a big game. So I was listening to the broadcast on ESPN. We got a game at 3 o'clock, Oregon State and USC. If I'm correct on this, if USC beats Oregon State, then Florida State would host a super regional. Is that correct? Am I accurate on that information there, Emily? If you're, I don't know, it might be frozen now. Ruh-roh. She's probably getting a phone call from somebody. But I do know that Oregon State is playing USC at 3 o'clock. I do know that, but I believe that's what ESPN was saying last night. Someone in the comments will probably be able to fully confirm that. Yes, Terrell is telling me that is correct. So that's in about 30 minutes or so. But just going off of what Emily was telling us there, a lot of momentum, and to have a home crowd and the way that Section B animals and then to the entire FSU fan base, it was loud. I don't know if any of you two guys were able to watch, but yeah, there's a comment here from Norley the Gnome saying Oregon State destroyed. Yeah, they did. That game wasn't even close from when I was watching. We'll see if Emily is able to join us here, but she might have been glitched out there on the internet connection. But we will give you guys some updates. I don't know if we can give you as good of analysis like Emily will give you. And Dustin, I don't know if you knew any of those names that she was reading there from the baseball front.
Definitely. A couple.
Yeah. Okay. We'll stick to high school recruits and transfers and football for the time being. But that's going to do it for this week's show. We'll probably have Emily on as the Supers go on for Florida State. And with that being said, as always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now before you leave, or if you're listening to it as a VOD later on, definitely drop down in the comments below what would be a successful season for Florida State. Drop down the record below in the comments. Also hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Got tons of you guys, and also some projects that we're working on too going into the season for you guys that I think you guys would want to stay subscribed for. So with that being said, enjoy the rest of y'all's week. And real quick, we do have Emily back with us, I believe, just for a second.
Sorry, my phone overheated.
I had a feeling. I was about to say it's probably hot as heck there.
Yeah, it is pretty hot. I have my air on, but it just like bit the dust, I guess. I was spitting so much heat. I know. My phone couldn't handle it.
Too much good stuff, man. Too much. But real quick, I was in and off the show, but I was mentioning that if I'm correct, and the chat was telling me that if Oregon State loses to USC, then Florida State will host a super regional.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So they play tonight at 6 p.m. and we are all Trojans tonight.
That is true. We're Trojans. Good thing you said 6 o'clock, because I guess I was reading off of 3 o'clock from whoever's local, beaversedge.com. That's probably why they're West Coast.
Well, because they're not on the same time zone as us.
I know. Yeah. I didn't fully go into that too far. And then, but yes, that's why we have you, Emily, to tell us the friggin' time. So we don't do it.
Of course.
Emily is over on Tribe Check. Make sure you guys go check her out. She does a phenomenal job. She grabs more interviews than I think we've had in our lifetime of the show. So make sure you guys go check out tons of baseball guys as well, former guys, current, and not just baseball, but she's all over the board. Go and give us a little bit like a rundown of your show and where they can find you.
Yeah, well, really quick too, if you are a baseball fan, I had James Tibbs and Marco Dinges last week, and Marco dropped a huge bomb on the pod. So if you want to hear that, if you have not already, then definitely check that out, because it's some tea, and if it's true, which Marco Dinges said it, so it has to be, then we're in for a good postseason the rest of the way. But yeah, I'm on all platforms. If you follow me on Twitter, or if you look on my Instagram bio, the link tree is in both. But really quick, it's linktr.ee/Emily_Peters. And then like all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all those fun things. You can find it there. And you can find my Twitter. It's at Emily Peters with 2 S's.
Yep. I remember we got that Twitter figured out for you during the off season. Got the Twitter set up for you. So make sure you guys go check her out.
You didn't want my birthday in there. I just wanted
No, we had to clean it up. A little bit. Had to clean up the brand a little bit, but she's doing a phenomenal job. Make sure she's drawing a lot of traction right now, a lot of growth there on her YouTube. So great interviews there. If you want baseball coverage, go over to her. She does a phenomenal job. So Emily, thank you for joining us. We'll likely have you on too as Florida State gets over into its supers. But yes, everybody enjoyed the rest of y'all's week, and we'll talk to you guys next week on Hear the Spear. Peace.